Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing MPR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. Today, we're actually having a special Jubilee special. I've got my fantastic guests I've collared in at the last minute to give us a helping hand to talk all things Jubilee today. Anyway, the business breakfast briefers, where each week I invite a panel of experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual businesses, their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Hopefully, if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And before we really introduce the panel properly, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, Hazelwood's, accountants and business advisors. Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. Today, we have Sam Holliday, Business Development Manager of the Federation of Small Business for the Gloucestershire and the Southwest of England. Neill Ricketts, CEO of Versarien PLC, based in the Forest of Dee. Roger White, MD, owner, founder of Seven Aside Software, the company that helps keep the lights on at the Moose Foundation. Oh, I practiced that one earlier. Right, anyway, let's have a quick review of the newspapers, courtesy of the BBC. Let's have a look, guys. Right. The Times newspaper, ethics chiefs threatened to resign over number 10 parties. The Daily Mail, rebels without a clue. The Metro, Boris may be toast. The Eye, PM phoning Tory MPs to save his job. The Telegraph, I don't think he's going to phone Mark Harper somehow, do you? I think that's out of the question. Right, the Daily Telegraph, explain Partygate, ethics chief tells PM. The Guardian, I'm going to go for a different story there. It's actually tourists are grounded amid airport chaos. The Financial Times, EU-UK pact on insurance ban deals fresh blow on Russian oil exports. The Daily Express, you spent 8 billion of our money. What's gone wrong? And the Daily Star, a Corey is for life, not just for Jubilee. Oh, can't leave out the Sun. I thought that was it then. Landing of Hope and Glory. This is a problem that the Queen had with the Queen's flight, by the way, which is based at RAF Benson, but I spent 5 years. I just thought I'd get that in there. And the Daily Mirror, forgive Andrew, which actually, shall we forgive Andrew? Neill. He's not got his complete silence.
Anyway, Mark,
I'll ask all of you. Neill, should we forgive Prince Andrew?
A very difficult one, isn't it? It's did he know? Did he not know? Was he guilty? Was he not guilty? At the end of the day, it's not for us to say. It's a legal thing.
We'll move on.
I mean, I don't know. Mark is the answer. Wasn't expecting that question. So.
No, that's fair enough. I dropped you in there. Yeah. Sam.
Well, I'm a Christian, so I have to believe in forgiveness. But some things may be a little bit harder to forgive than others. But yeah, got to believe in forgiveness.
Roger.
Difficult one. I would say the trouble is we don't know the full facts, and my inclination would be no.
And I don't know either. You know, I'm a bit like you. Can you forgive? I'd like to think I would turn the other cheek and stuff, but for the victims or alleged victims,
it's just such a terrible. The whole thing is such a terrible thing for a royal to be involved with, etc., etc. Basically, no. They're supposed to be the epitome of our society, yeah. So I'd say no.
Okay, well, I kind of do tend to agree with you there. Right, anyway, Neill, let's go and talk about the newspapers then. Thanks, Roger.
Fantastic. Right, okay. got the newspapers today, Mark. Been out early, got them, can't see them. There we go. Yeah. What a waste of time. That's 45 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back again. But anyway, the stories I've gone for kind of all linked together a little bit. The air chaos that we're seeing at the moment, you highlighted it on the front page of some of the papers. There's going to be a winter of discontent if we carry on. Fuel prices going up. People can't get away on holiday. It looks like chaos and carnage in the airports. We're struggling to get people back to work after COVID. There's a big story in one of the papers about civil servants not returning to the offices. If you go into London, there's a fraction of the people that used to be there. The world has changed, and I'm not 100% sure that some of these organisations have changed either. I think there's a sea change in the way that we look after people and ensure that we give them enough flexibility while maintaining the services. Looking in more local news, in the Forester, talk about the Jubilee. There's some great pictures of when the Queen came into the Forest, 1957. I mean, what has happened in the last 50 or 60 years? I mean, you just think about all the positive things that have happened. And there's a lot of celebration. So if you can't get away at the airport, then there's lots of local things going on. There's some great parties going on at Speech House, Bathurst, and a load of other places. I really do suggest you get the Citizen or the Forester and have a look at what local events are on. It's a great time to actually come together. Interestingly enough, I was at Windsor Castle last night, so there's a story in there that obviously the story you picked up about the Queen flying in. She had a bit of a bumpy ride, unfortunately, but made it back to Windsor Castle last night. And the biggest story actually is that people with bald heads may be an endangered species in the next couple of decades, because hair transplants have come on at such a great speed that there won't be any baldies. So,
no, I like the old hat, by the way. It's dual purpose, isn't it?
This is a great hat. This one, I picked this up in Windsor, as you can tell. At last minute notice. I was lastminute.com for Mark as a stand-in for at least 10 other people that he called before me. But it's actually reversible, Mark. Right. So, come the end of the Jubilee, I'll be putting it inside out, and then
wow,
not wasted anything at all.
That's the best £2.99 you've ever spent.
Definitely.
It probably was about £8 actually. Anyway,
Windsor, isn't it? It's a royal tax on at the moment, so. Thank
you very much for that, Neil. Sam, what have you picked out of the papers?
Well, similar to what Neil was talking about, really. The hospital, the hotels, holiday maker scandal, whatever you want to call it, Stranded Airport, is everywhere. But do you know what? Again, what Neil said is true. There's an underlying story behind this. And the main reasons that EasyJet and TUI and all these people are cancelling flights, they're saying, is because of staff. They haven't got enough staff, they can't recruit. And that's what we're hearing from businesses of all sizes at the moment. And we used to, people like Neil and I, when we sit on like the Forest Economic Partnership, we used to a lot about things like the skills gap. It's not about skills anymore. It's a gap of every level. Every level, people can't keep jobs now. Excuse me. But what's interesting is facing that page, on the same page in the Independent, there's a story there about a company called Misguided who went into administration this week, and they sacked all their staff by a pre-recorded phone call. They were all invited to a Zoom meeting. When they got on, they were all muted, and an audio message fired them. Ridiculous. A bit like the P&O thing. And you might think, why are those related? They are related because your staff are everything. Without the people that work for you, you've got nothing. So you really have got to look after your staff, even if it means you come to the end. And I've been in a position as a boss when I've had to make people redundant. I try to make it as painless as I can, get them the best deal I can, try and support them. And then remember that, because you never know when you might need them again in the future. And maybe people like EasyJet and TUI who shed staff during COVID, didn't give them enough support, they're paying the price for it now. And it's not just them that's paying the price for it. We're all paying the price for it. I mean, the stories in the papers about people with honeymoons being cancelled. It's not just about getaways and missing fun weekends. There's some serious family things that are being missed because of this. And it's the message is, if you've got staff, look after them. And even if you have to let them go, don't do that.
Do it professionally. I mean, I remember when I had to make some people redundant going back to the last recession. I cried.
Yeah, I know.
Right,
yeah.
It's bloody upsetting. I was really upset for them. One of them turned around and said, Mark, I worked for you for quite some time. You're a bastard for letting me go. I'm retiring soon. Honestly, I was really upset about it, and they were really upset about it. Everyone's really upset. You've got to do it professionally. You expect people to come in professionally.
Mark, one thing I'll say that I had to make quite a number of people redundant over a period. They're nearly all still friends, and they're friends on Facebook and all that. And I think if I'd done it wrong, they wouldn't be, no matter what our previous relationship was. And you don't know, one day you might meet these people in another life. And they might turn about a company that you're going to be working with, and suddenly all that matters. So look after your staff, and then things like some of these holiday curses probably won't be happening.
I think the other thing, Sam, is mixed up with all these holiday makers. There's an awful lot of people trying to get to work and trying to get to important business meetings, but there's only there's 30% of the staff are missing. And they're missing because of sickness. They're missing because they don't want to go back to work. They don't like being in an office, having been away for 2 years. And so the collective disruption is huge. I mean, I know we're all talking here. We're not at the fire station today where we would be normally, but we're quite capable of being able to do this. Some things you can't go to an exhibition virtually, or it's very hard to do so. And so the disruption is huge.
But to be fair to the airlines, just defending the airlines for a minute, and the travel industry, obviously in the depths of the pandemic, who knew what was going to happen? I mean, it really did look at certain points, it really looked bleak. And it just shows the furlough scheme has been such a major, major success that we've got full employment. I know there's all the other complications with Brexit and everything else, but the fact that, I mean, when we think about some of the alternative scenarios that could have happened as a result of the pandemic, I think the furlough, massive success. And to be fair to the travel industry, if you're facing a complete, people are not able to travel, and the whole basis of your business has dropped through the floor, and you've got nothing, then I don't know. It's very difficult. You've got to if you're burning through cash because you've got no business, then I guess you've got to do something.
That's right. And the government didn't help.
That's a fair comment, Roger. Yeah.
The government didn't help people go back to it. Remember, they were kicking the can down the road all the time, and as an airline, they had no idea. They had no idea their cash flow, what they were going to do, and what.
They had no cash.
Well, they had no cash. They had a lot of government cash.
I think the other thing. This is a PR job, because actually the other thing that's happened is I have been on a few flights recently. I've had to travel with work, and obviously I went on honeymoon as well. The flights are full, so the airlines are being very, very clever about how they're managing their aircraft and their routes. And I think some of these cancellations are about actually cost saving. And and you would do, if you were in that business. Your fuel prices are going up, your tickets have already been sold. A lot of these are cancelled, vacations from COVID. The prices are fixed where they, where the consumer can. And so I think, they're also being a little bit cute with how they're scheduling their flights as well. I think there were 200 flights cancelled yesterday.
Right. So, all right, that's a very, very good point, actually. Thanks for that, Neil. Roger, what have you got from the papers, mate?
Well, I'll start with a couple of, I'm looking at the Times, and obviously the Partygate Boris story rumbles on in all media formats. Obviously, the number of votes going to the 1922 committee for lack of confidence in Boris is slowly going up. It's creeping up. Obviously, it's supposed to be confidential, so we don't actually know what the number is. But I've seen various numbers, but this week, and it's interesting that they are the sort of guess estimates, judging by the number of MPs who are saying Boris should go. We don't actually know who. It's all confidential. Who's actually written their letters to the 1922 committee? But it seems to me we are heading for a challenge to Boris. Whether it's next week or the week after, I think the Partygate thing has been so damning. As well as the treatment, the headlines about the treatment of staff at Downing Street. It's not good. It really is not good news for Boris and his government. It just makes the whole thing look like a circus. Originally, I thought the government had done such a fantastic job of steering the country through the pandemic. And then, of course, all this has come out about Partygate, and just unbelievable. But also talking about staff, it's come out that the staff in Downing Street, the cleaners, security people, have been treated appallingly while all this partying was going on. And we've just discussed, looking after your staff. And that's actually the bit, one of the bits that really made me cross, because these people, are serving our country, and they're there in places like Downing Street, regardless of who the government is. They're there to support the government with no political bias, and then it turns out they've all been treated badly while all this partying was going on. So
Roger, surely Boris isn't responsible for the cleaners and
well, it's just the fact that they've been treated so badly while all this partying was going on.
I know it's about culture, but surely he he can't be held responsible for the management of
it's leadership though, isn't it? It's leadership, and it starts at the top and works its way down. Yeah, admittedly he's not responsible for every single cleaner, but it's leadership, isn't it? If you set the tone, you know, in our organizations we set the tone of how we want our organization to be, and it's a reflection of how we are as leaders of our organizations. And I just think there's been some really serious leadership failings, as well as the Partygate situation, and I feel sorry for the junior people in being at some of these parties, because if the Prime Minister's at a party, and you know, it sort of puts a sort of well, it must be all right because the Prime Minister's here. Of course it isn't all right, but you can understand why some junior people think, oh well, it was okay, and they're the ones that have got the fines. So you can see why a lot of people are quite unhappy in Downing Street.
Okay, no, I get that. So go on then. Should he stay or should he go?
I think he should go. I mean, I've supported the guy. I thought the government's done a fantastic job through the pandemic, and then all this has come out. And my vote now is, you know, he should go. And if the Conservatives don't sort this out, they're going to just be completely trashed at the next election. They've got time to sort it out. I know we've got the Ukraine war situation, which is obviously very serious, and we need consistency. And we've got the sort of fresh cost of living crisis. But if we can't keep rumbling on with this Partygate and new things coming out. Let's get somebody else in. But obviously there's a process, and if we don't get to the 54 letters, then it won't happen. But if I was an MP, I'd send my letter in. Okay,
all right, Roger. Just very quickly, guys. Sam, should he stay or should he go?
Well, I'll illustrate it with a point. It gives me an excuse. I'm a big football fan, right? Which gives me a chance to plug the fact that I was at Wembley on Saturday. So neat to see my team, Nottingham Forest, get promoted.
I wondered how long that would take you to get
23 years. But the point is that when football teams not doing well, the first thing you say is sack the manager. But Forest have had 20 odd managers in the last 20 years. And every time they sack someone, they bring someone else in that doesn't do the job. I think the thing that's going through Tories' minds is Boris may deserve to go, but who replaces him? I think a month ago, it was an easier decision because they all thought Rishi was a shoo-in.
I agree.
But then what's happened with Rishi, with his wife, whether it's his fault or not, suddenly there's a bit of a cloud over Rishi as well. So before you sack your manager, if I was a Tory MP, I'd be thinking this.
Who else?
Liz Truss? Really? Priti Patel? Please. I mean, you've got to be really honest about this. Who would replace him that would win votes in Labour seats? And the reason the Tories have got such a massive majority is they won seats that they've never won before. And whether you like the bloke or not, because I know a lot of former Labour supporters that voted Tory, one reason, Brexit / Boris. Brexit's gone, but they still kind of like the bloke. So if I was a Tory MP, and let's face it, Tory MPs aren't, they're pretty ruthless. Yeah, they'll look at their best electoral chances. And a lot of them will make the decision based on that. So I'm not going to say whether they should go or not. What I'm saying is it's very easy to sack your manager. If you haven't got one that can win your place, you're back where you started.
Okay. Neil, should he stay or should he go?
I'm not going to say, but because I don't think there's a right answer. I think there were some really good things done. I think if we hadn't had furlough, as Roger said, the biggest thing is the COVID vaccine rollout. I went to this lecture at Windsor last night by one of the previous presidents of Ireland, and the inequality around vaccines is staggering. Something like only 17% of third world countries or people in third world countries have had a vaccine at all. And we've had 3 or 4, and to me, I think what they did around the vaccines was amazing. It's allowed us to go to concerts, consider holidays. We really kind of led the world in that way.
Yes.
Created a lot of inequality, but yeah, that was a defining moment. The economy, okay, furlough. I never even heard of the term furlough until it came along, and I got to admit, when we went into lockdown, I didn't know whether we were going to come out the other side. So I think it's very easy to criticize politics. The point I would like to raise is actually, it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things who's in charge, because we've got much bigger problems. We were talking last night about climate crisis. We were talking about war in Europe. we were talking about the pandemic and the inequality. We take it for granted that we can do these things. In South America, I've got a conversation with some guys from Brazil. They're going through their fourth wave, fifth wave. You talk to people out in China, there's still huge amounts of disruption. We've got much bigger problems to consider than that. It was wrong. Everyone knows it was wrong. Someone, not me, has to decide what the punishment for that is. And we kind of need to move on. I don't really care which prime minister's in place. I don't really care which party's in place. What I care about is, are we making progress on these really big items? And the biggest item we've got in the room is climate crisis. We are very, very quickly going to get into a situation. Every talk I go to now is about we have a very finite window to resolve this issue we have, which is this 1.5 degree increase in global temperature. And, the Jubilee is great. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic celebration. The politics, I think, are all short-termism. You can guarantee that someone in one of the other parties is leaking information to bring down Boris. To what aim? That's not going to fix our problems. We're talking about economic and political cycles which are 3 and 4 years long, trying to tackle problems which are 20 years in the making.
I think personally that who would want to step up on the plate? Who would want to do the job? I mean, you've got everything that you've just said about all of us. Nobody would want that job. I personally.
Who would you say, Mark, if he went tomorrow, we'd replace him? That's the problem.
But this is it. I don't think there is any.
Jeremy Hunt, maybe?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I personally would even have Mark Harper. At least he sticks to his guns. But I don't know. There's nobody really there that who could galvanise the country.
Or could win those votes that Boris uniquely managed to win.
That's right. I don't say any other political parties any better. I think the big issues. I do think what they did with the vaccine and what they did with the furlough was absolutely truly amazing, and has put this country back on its feet. We wouldn't be anywhere. I mean, I thought everything was going to be a basket case. I thought there'd be riots in the streets. I thought they'd have to bring in the army.
To be honest, I think if we didn't have furlough, can you imagine?
Yeah, well,
pre-COVID, can you imagine a situation where people were told to stay in their houses for 4 weeks?
Yeah. But also, you'd have people who couldn't afford to feed their families, and so what you'd have is people breaking into shops. There'd be rioting. It'd be like all the other third world countries that we saw. It'd be like Brazil. So what they actually did was tremendous, and big people's problems now. Or whether they're going on holiday to Alicante or Corfu. I mean, for Christ's sake, it was only less than a year ago. So I don't know. And then you've got the problem with Ukraine, the price of oil, and we've got this big thing of wheat. I mean, who knew? I didn't know that Ukraine made all the did all the wheat. It goes to show, isn't it? And that all
and fertilizer.
Yeah, all that chicken feed, all these things. Yeah.
I mean, all these things are coming out now, and I mean, I don't think Putin knew that a lot of this stuff, some of his chips and military electronics came from Ukraine as well. But then that's a different story. So
I think it was a land grab to get the precious chemicals that are there. That's pretty obvious,
I'm going to quickly, just very, very quickly. I've got to point out this story that appeared in the Daily Star. It is about pets. I love it when you dress a corgi up in a crown, and they're saying about. It says in the paper about give your pooch a great time. Typical paper. We've survived a lot. I think we can survive the Jubilee. Flags must not be strung from lamppost. Bunting must be 18 feet off the ground. High risk of bunting related incidents at parties. This is the health and safety nuts go mad. Story I really like is this lady who made Victoria sponge. There's a queen. Made a sponge. Absolutely fantastic. And the other story I just want to show was this film fan notches up over 1,000 movies during lockdown.
Nice.
He's a lot slimmer than I thought he would be. Anyway, right. Let's talk very quickly about your own individual business sectors, which we kind of touched on very briefly. So we start with you, Neill. Graphene.
Fantastic. I mean, so graphene, we making huge amounts of progress at the moment in textiles. I'd hoped they didn't. We haven't done a Union Jack graphene top yet, but it's in the making. The main progress has been getting these big brands signed up. So we signed up a Dubai and announced a Dubai company yesterday, where peak management is really, really important. Things like the rugby sevens, and so yeah, huge progress on that front. Now we've got the hard work of getting this stuff into the shops and getting it launched over the course of the next few months.
So what's the Dubai company? Sorry.
It's I'm surprised you don't know them. It's Original Gangster, OG they're called. Small brand, starting out in Dubai, and we've been working with them for a few months now, trying to get some clothing together so that they can launch it out in Dubai. I think there's lots and lots of activity at the moment. The world has really kind of opened up. So we've got conversations going on in the Middle East today. We've got conversations going on in South Korea. We've got conversations going on in South America. I think there's a real openness to really get back to work now, even if it is virtually. But we're seeing lots more excitement and lots more progress.
Obviously, all these conversations, you need to have good cybersecurity, you need to have good connections. That leads me very nicely on to Roger and what he does at Seven Size Software. So Roger, how's it been for you over the last 6 months?
Well, it's interesting. It's exactly the same as the airports, really. We're so busy, but we just need more people to do the work. And during the pandemic, obviously, it was a real roller coaster with during the depths, certain times, absolutely no work at all in terms of when everybody was furloughed. Obviously, you'd think everybody needs IT support, but if the world's furloughed, then the country's furloughed, then nobody is going to need any IT help. So we had moments where there was nothing. But since November last year, the amount of work coming in exceeds our capacity. So getting skilled, good people is a problem. That's our problem, exactly the same as we're seeing in other sectors. It's repeated. So if we could get the people, we've got the work. So it's managing, obviously, that situation. You don't want to let anybody down. You've got to be realistic about your timescales. And that's the current challenge. And I never could have predicted this, as we've discussed. But that is the current position. If we could get more people, I've got a fabulous team. I should say I've got a fabulous team of people, but we just need a few more. So that's the position. But it's great to have so much going on across lots of different sectors. We're not working in one particular vertical market or one sector, and that makes me very happy for obvious reasons.
I'm not surprised. I mean, at the end of the day, you've been in business a long time, Roger. You've got a great reputation.
34 years, yeah.
34 years. You've always done our IT and everything.
I've got some grey hair coming now from 34 years of trying to look after your people's IT.
Trying to look after my own IT. That'll give you enough grey hair, mate. You know.
Yeah, you take a tablet.
Thanks ever so much, mate. Okay, let's get Sam. Employment, really. This is the thing that I hear all the time. I know we touched on it earlier, but
no, it's constantly, and it's brilliant to hear that. And well, Neil and Roger doing it's great, and there are quite a lot of success stories out there at the moment. There's a lot of businesses that are doing well. There's a lot that are very nervous as well, though. A lot are very cautious. I mean, the ongoing cost of doing business crisis, as we call it. You know, it's getting more and more expensive. Fuel's getting more expensive. So many different things, and the staff issue is the one that keeps coming back. I went to a mini conference about it last week, and everyone's saying the same. And it's no longer about even salary. People are offering very good salaries and still not getting the people. And I think Roger's right. None of us could have predicted anything about COVID. But one thing, none of us, even when we were doing this 12, 18 months ago, was predicting that the end of furlough wouldn't be enough people. We thought that we all feared unemployment, didn't we? We thought we were going to have a terrible unemployment problem. Completely the opposite, and we weren't prepared for that. And it's a buyer's market now. And I heard a stat the other day: 50% of people who are shortlisted for interviews aren't even turning up because they've got so much choice now. And if you imagine you're a small company and you can't maybe match with salary and stuff, and you can't match with all the perks. It's even harder, I think, to get those people on board of all ages. We're not just talking young people, of all ages. And so it is a big issue. And I think while that's going on, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. But there are a lot of success stories. And Neil and Roger are brilliant examples of that, but there's a lot of businesses that are at the moment.
I'm really glad you mentioned about the not turning up malarkey, because the amount of people I've talked to, business owners, who've said they've actually had people sign contracts believing that they're starting the next day. They've got their computer there, they've got their pens, their papers, their starter kit, their welcome pack, and the people don't turn up. And it's like 3 times this has happened, 3 or 4 times. It happened to one company I know, where they think they've actually got the staff, and of course that throws you completely out of sync, as you can imagine. You know, you might have taken on a bigger contract because you think you've got the workers. It's an absolute nightmare.
And as you will all know, you know, it's quite an expensive and laborious thing to get someone on board. That's why you should, again, coming back to the story we first started, look after the staff you've got, because to replace them, it's expensive, it's time consuming, and it's, as you said, I've heard that as well. People have got their desk ready, they've almost got a welcoming party for them. They don't even give a phone call, some people. That's just to clear off the grid.
But I hate to say it, mate, the loyalty is not there nowadays, either from the younger people. You know?
I disagree with you there, Mark. I think Sam hit the nail on the head. I think there is loyalty out there. I think you've got to be really creative. I think you've got to be really flexible. You know, taking on a millennial, or even younger, that then wants and needs are completely different to our wants and needs, and I think there's too much temptation that one size fits all, and that's not the case. They are going to want to work from home. They are going to want more flexibility, as we do in some instances. And
I like this working from home malarkey.
Well, I think I've drastically reduced the amount of traveling I'm doing. It gives me more time with the family, which is great. But it doesn't work all the time. Some meetings, they do have to be face to face. Sometimes you do have to travel. But the amount of money that we're saving through not traveling, through kind of having a sense check around meetings, by reducing the amount of needless travel that we probably had before, is only positive for the environment as well. But I think, as Sam says, there is loyalty out there, but you've got to work hard at it. And I don't think some companies are working that hard at it. I think, going back to what Roger said, this is not a short-term political problem. And as I said to you before, you can't solve these things in a parliamentary cycle. By the time you've employed your ministers, then you've had a couple of reshuffles. You've probably had, three different ministers in any one cycle. How are you meant to create a pathway from primary school to employment under that thing? The people that are doing this really well, people like Singapore, they have 20-year programs, cross-party support, and they just get on and do it. We don't have that mentality, and I think that's really bad.
It's a bit like Sam said earlier, isn't it? It's a bit like if you keep changing your managers, you keep changing it all the time, you're not going to get the, look at Watford. They keep sucking their money. It was going to catch up with them in the end. Anyway, guys, we're running out of time, unfortunately, so we'll just go over to what's caught your eye in this week's punchline, please. Let's start with you, Roger. What's caught your eye in this week's punchline?
Okay, my favourite story actually is Gloucester Services named the best in the UK. So I don't think that is a surprise. Anybody who's actually been there is not going to be surprised by that headline. You quite often find me there on a Saturday in the shop looking for different bits of steak or fish. I just go there because the shop is just so fantastic. I don't go there. I actually drive up there from my office on a Saturday to find some really good local food. And it's just fantastic. Never mind the actual services element. I just go there to get some treats, food wise, because it's fantastic. So it's not a surprise to me that again, it is, and the one in Torbay, but the whole thing is just fantastic. When I look at the price as I leave, when I look at the price of at the forecourt, it's even higher than high. So I keep on driving. Don't buy my fuel there. Just buy steaks and fish quality provisions, but keep on going past the pubs.
Okay, Sam, what's caught your eye this week?
Well, there's obviously lots of great stories in Punchline every week, but I have to say it was the same story. And the reason I find it particularly good is my my hometown is original hometown is Tamworth in Staffordshire, and it's very famous for its castle and its snow dome, its Drayton Manor, all kinds of things. When I mention it to people around here, they all go, "Oh, Tamworth services." It's even more so now with Gloucester. When I mention Gloucester, you think they're going to talk about the rugby, the cathedral, and they'll go, "No, it's that service. It's a fantastic service station." And I think that looks well on the area then, if people think they like coming to the area. So if I was Gloucestershire's tourism bosses, I would put so much stuff in that service station. I'm sure there's bits and bobs. Last time I checked there was, because it's a great advert for the city, and everything about that service station, the way they recruit their staff locally, the way they use all local suppliers, the look of it, the feel of it. You're right, Roger's right. You can go there and have a cup of coffee. It's one of the best coffee shops in the county. I think it's brilliant. It's great for Gloucester, and it's putting Gloucester and Gloucestershire on the map. Who knew a service station could put you on the map? But it does.
I think we should have a meeting there.
I think we should, definitely.
I'll come along.
Neil, what's caught your eye this week's Punch, mate?
A great G1st project that was as well, and unfortunately this month I stand down, having served my maximum tenure on the board. So I wish them all well, and look forward to seeing everybody at the G1st annual review that's at Cotswold Airport. But talking about, I think, sometimes it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the doom and the gloom of everything. I went to the outdoor cinema with my wife last Friday down at the Priory. It was absolutely fantastic, down by the docks. What a great place the docks is. And of course, this weekend we've got the tall ships coming in, ready for the tall ship festival that's going on there. And I think, that brings a lot of people into the county. It's fantastic. Get down there, have a quick look at it. Don't worry about the airports, and have a good look around the docks. I think it's a fantastic place and a real asset to the county. Yeah,
we love it down the docks. I know that I've often seen bumped into Sam sitting outside a bar with his wife, having a nice little cappuccino or something. I would like to just say that you are right. The story for me has to be the tall ships. We've read it a couple of times, but is also the £25 million investment in the 5 valleys, which has been a fantastic turnaround of the business and also injected some real momentum in Stroud's regeneration as well. So congratulations to the guys behind that. Before we finish, I'd just like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Thanks ever so much, chaps, for your sponsorship. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. We'll be back next year. But before we go, I'd just like to raise a toast to Her Majesty the Queen. Long may she reign.
Long may she reign.
I think you mean next week, by the way, Mark, not next year. You should next year.
You're looking forward to a lie-in, Mark.
That's a long Jubilee celebration.
That certainly is.
I'd just like
How much water are you having?
Oh no, I'd just like to say a big thanks, obviously, for turning up with such short notice and my incompetence of trying to organise this. So I really do appreciate it all, guys, and catch you all very soon. Have a nice weekend.
Yes.
God
save the Queen. Amen. If only Alan Myatt was here. Well, maybe not.